The twin moons of Cythera cast their silver glow over the grand amphitheater, illuminating the ancient stone structure that had witnessed a century of bloodshed. Thousands of Cytherans filled the tiered seating, their scaled skin shimmering in various hues of blue and green under the moonlight. The air buzzed with anticipation, a mixture of excitement and dread that had become as traditional as the combat itself. Queen Nyla stood at the center of the arena, her silver armor reflecting the bioluminescent walls that pulsed in time with the crowd's mounting fervor. Known throughout the galaxy as the Silver Death, she cut an imposing figure, tall and lithe, with liquid silver hair that cascaded down her back like mercury. Her face remained impassive, emotionless, as it had during the execution of 100 challengers before tonight's event. "Bring forth the human," she commanded, her voice amplified across the amphitheater. The crowd roared their approval, stamping their feet against the stone floors, creating a thunderous rhythm that echoed throughout the capital city. For 15,000 years, since the Great Unification, the Cytheran monarchy had maintained power through ritual combat. What had begun as a demonstration of strength had evolved into spectacle, entertainment, and ultimately, political necessity. Captain Zara approached the Queen, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty, Challenger 101 awaits your judgment." Nyla nodded, her silver eyes scanning the crowd. Representatives from all 12 Cytheran clans were present tonight, watching her every move. The executions had once united them in bloodlust, but lately, she sensed division. Some clans whispered of change, of alliances with the humans and their interstellar coalition. Others, led by her cousin General Vex, demanded isolation and strength through traditional means. "Let him face his fate," Nyla replied, gripping her energy blade tighter. From the shadowed entrance emerged 2 Cytheran guards, dragging a human male between them. Unlike previous challengers, who had struggled against their bonds, this one walked steadily, despite the heavy shackles around his wrists and ankles. He was dressed in simple black attire that contrasted with his tanned skin and dark brown hair. His eyes, an unusual shade of green, showed no fear as he surveyed his surroundings. The guards forced him to his knees before the Queen, the traditional position of supplication. The crowd fell silent, expecting the familiar script to unfold, the pleading, the begging, followed by the swift execution that would send Cytheran bloodlust soaring. Instead, the human looked up at Queen Nyla and smiled. "Good evening, Your Majesty," he said in perfect Cytheran. "Brody Keller, Envoy of Earth at your service." Nyla blinked, momentarily thrown by the unexpected greeting. She had executed 99 criminals and 1 accidental political prisoner over her reign. All had begged. None had smiled. "Silence!" Captain Zara hissed, striking the human across the face with her staff. Brody barely flinched. He maintained eye contact with the Queen, his gaze steady and analytical. "I notice you favor your right side when you stand. Is that from the assassination attempt 3 cycles ago? The one orchestrated by the Proxima Syndicate?" The crowd murmured in surprise. This information was not widely known outside the royal court. "You are here to die, human," Nyla stated, raising her energy blade. The weapon hummed to life, its edge glowing with plasma that could slice through bone as easily as flesh. "Not to make observations." "With respect, Your Majesty," Brody replied. "I'm here to offer an alternative to what has become a rather predictable evening for you." The Queen hesitated, the blade hovering in midair. In 100 executions, no one had ever suggested the proceedings were boring. The audacity intrigued her. 100 challengers, Brody continued, noting her pause. All executed without effort, without challenge. I wonder if the great Silver Death remembers what true combat feels like. Captain Zara stepped forward, outraged. "Your Majesty, allow me to silence this insolent creature." Nyla raised her hand, stopping her loyal captain. No. She studied the human with new interest. Take him to my obsidian chamber. This one requires further interrogation before execution. A collective gasp rippled through the amphitheater. Never had the ritual been interrupted. The clan representatives exchanged glances, some concerned, others calculating. From his seat of honor, General Vex's face darkened with displeasure as he watched the guards escort Brody away. The Queen addressed the stunned audience. The ritual is postponed. Return tomorrow, and blood will flow. She turned and followed the procession out of the arena, ignoring the confused murmurs that followed. Behind her, General Vex leaned toward his aide. Contact our allies, he whispered. The Queen shows weakness. It may be time to accelerate our plans. The obsidian chamber lived up to its name. Black polished stone surrounded Brody on all sides, reflecting his image in distorted fragments. A single beam of moonlight pierced through a crystal opening in the ceiling, illuminating the center of the room where he stood, still in shackles. Queen Nyla entered alone, having dismissed her guards. She had removed her ceremonial battle armor and now wore a simpler silver tunic that accentuated her tall, athletic frame. Without the amplification of the arena, her voice was lower, almost melodic. You have either great courage or great foolishness. Human, she said, circling him slowly. Which is it? Brody tracked her movement with his eyes. I prefer to think of it as calculated risk assessment, Your Majesty. And what did your calculations tell you about interrupting a sacred ritual? About antagonizing a queen who has executed 100 before you without remorse? They told me that the great Queen Nyla is intelligent enough to recognize an opportunity when it presents itself, Brody replied, and that she might be weary of battles without challenge. Nyla stopped directly in front of him. Up close, her silver eyes were flecked with blue, giving them depth beyond their metallic sheen. What challenge could you possibly offer me, human? You are unarmed, shackled, and alone on a hostile planet. The greatest battles, Brody said softly, are not fought with blades, but with minds. A slight smile played at the corner of Nyla's mouth. You believe your mind can match mine? I believe we could both benefit from finding out. She approached a control panel embedded in the obsidian wall and pressed her palm against it. Brody's shackles fell away with a metallic clang. Then let us begin this alternative combat, she said, gesturing to two chairs that rose from the floor. Tell me why Earth sent you, Brody Keller, and know that if your words fail to interest me, my blade will not. Brody rubbed his wrists where the shackles had been and took a seat across from her. Earth didn't send me, Your Majesty. At least, not officially. Nyla's eyebrow arched. A rogue agent! A preventive measure. My superiors believe war between our peoples is inevitable. I was sent to assess your weaknesses, to prepare for that conflict. He leaned forward slightly. I, however, believe there are more beneficial paths than warfare. Such honesty could get you killed, Nyla observed. Dishonesty certainly would, Brody countered. You've executed spies before. The Arcturian diplomat last cycle, for instance. He tried deception. How long did he last in the arena? 2 minutes? 1.5, Nyla corrected, studying him with growing curiosity. You're well informed for an unofficial envoy? Information is survival, Brody said simply. I know that your council is divided on whether to join the Interstellar Coalition. I know that General Vex leads the isolationist faction and has been gathering support among the traditional clans. And I know that 3 attempts have been made on your life in the past cycle, all supposedly by human agents. Nyla stiffened almost imperceptibly. Are you confessing to involvement in those attempts? I'm suggesting they were orchestrated by someone much closer to you, Brody said carefully. Someone who benefits from human Scytheran hostilities. Before Nyla could respond, an alarm blared throughout the chamber. Red light flooded the room as Captain Zara's voice came through the communication system. Your Majesty, intruders in the northwest corridor. They're heading toward the obsidian chamber. Nyla was on her feet instantly, energy blade in hand. She glanced at Brody, suspicion flashing in her eyes. A convenient distraction for your allies? Brody stood slowly, hands raised. If I wanted you dead, I wouldn't be warning you about traitors in your midst. The door to the chamber burst open. 3 masked figures rushed in, weapons raised. Death to the Queen! Death to human sympathizers! One shouted. Nyla moved with astonishing speed, her blade slicing through the first attacker's weapon before it could discharge. She spun, preparing to face the second, when Brody grabbed a decorative shield from the wall and hurled it with precision. It struck the attacker's head with a resonant clang, sending him sprawling. The third assassin took aim at Nyla's unprotected back. Without hesitation, Brody launched himself forward, tackling the Queen to the ground as energy bolts sizzled through the air where she had stood a moment before. Captain Zara and Royal Guard stormed in, quickly subduing the remaining attacker. Brody found himself pinned beneath Nyla, their faces inches apart. For a brief moment, something unguarded flickered in her silver eyes. Surprise, perhaps even gratitude. You saved my life, she whispered, her voice for his ears alone. Consider it a down payment on our future alliance, Brody replied quietly. She rose swiftly, composing herself before her guards could notice the momentary lapse in her regal demeanor. Captain Zara approached, eyeing Brody with newfound uncertainty. Your Majesty, are you injured? I am unharmed, thanks to the humans' unexpected intervention. Nyla turned to Brody. It seems you've earned a temporary reprieve from the arena. Envoy Keller. Fortunate timing, Brody acknowledged, wiping a trickle of blood from his temple where he'd struck the floor. Too fortunate, perhaps, Nyla murmured, her eyes narrowing as she examined the captured assassins. Remove their masks. I want to see the faces of those who would dare attack their queen. Captain Zara complied, revealing 3 Scytherans with the distinctive green-tinted scales of the Vex clan. Take them to the holding cells, Nyla ordered. I will question them personally. She turned to Brody. You will join me. It seems your insights on Scytheran politics may prove useful. As the guards led the assassins away, Brody caught the calculating look in Nyla's eyes. The first move in their mental combat had been made, and he had scored an unexpected point, but the game was far from over. Over the next 3 days, Queen Nyla postponed the execution ritual indefinitely, citing security concerns. She spent hours in closed sessions with Brody, initially under the guise of interrogation, but increasingly seeking his perspective on matters of state. They established a pattern of meeting in the Skyview guest quarters, where Brody had been relocated. A transparent dome that offered a breathtaking panorama of Cythera's harsh desert landscape and twin moons. Here, away from the court's prying eyes, their conversations ranged from interstellar politics to personal philosophies. Your combat rituals, Brody said during one such evening, as they shared a meal of Cytheran delicacies. They're more than just executions, aren't they? Nyla sipped from a chalice of glowing blue liquid. They are the foundation of our society. For 15 millennia, strength has determined leadership. Yet you've postponed 3 scheduled bouts since our first encounter, Brody observed. The clans must be growing restless. Let them, Nyla replied, though a flicker of concern crossed her features. I am still the Silver Death. No one has defeated me in combat since I took the throne 20 cycles ago. Combat takes many forms, Brody said carefully. General Vex doesn't need to defeat you in the arena if he can undermine you in the council. Nyla's eyes narrowed. You seem fixated on my cousin's ambitions. I'm fixated on keeping you alive long enough to establish a meaningful alliance, Brody countered. The assassins were from his clan. Doesn't that concern you? Vex denounced them as rogue elements. Nyla said, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. He has demanded their public execution to demonstrate his loyalty. Convenient, Brody murmured. He distances himself from failure while calling for blood to appease the traditional clans. Nyla set down her chalice with deliberate care. What would you suggest? That I accuse a royal cousin of treason without proof? The clans would fracture, and civil war would follow. Not accusation, Brody said, leaning forward. Investigation. Allow me access to your communication systems. If Vex is plotting against you, he's left traces. You ask for unprecedented access to Scytheran security, Nyla observed. Why should I trust you? Because I've had 3 opportunities to harm you, and have chosen otherwise. Brody replied simply. Because Earth needs this alliance as much as Cythera does, and because, he hesitated, then continued more softly. I believe you're a leader worth protecting. Something shifted in Nyla's expression, a softening around her eyes that betrayed an emotion Scytherans rarely displayed. Vulnerability. Very well, she said finally. Captain Zara will grant you limited access, but she will monitor your activities. Brody nodded. That's all I ask. Later that night, as Nyla departed, Captain Zara remained behind. Her expression was unreadable as she studied Brody. The Queen has never postponed an execution, she said abruptly. In 20 cycles, she has never broken tradition. Until you. Perhaps some traditions deserve reconsideration, Brody suggested. Perhaps, Zara agreed, surprising him. But others have suggested change before. They died in the arena. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. She watches you while you sleep, through the security monitors. Did you know that? Brody maintained a neutral expression. Should I be concerned? She has never watched another being sleep, Zara said meaningfully. Whatever game you're playing, human, remember this. If you harm her, there is nowhere in this galaxy you could hide from me. With that warning delivered, she departed, leaving Brody alone beneath the twin moons. He waited until the door sealed behind her, then pressed a finger against his forearm. A subdermal communicator, invisible to Cytheran scanners, activated with a soft pulse. Commander Vale, he whispered. Phase 1 complete. The Queen has granted access. Proceeding to Phase 2. A faint voice responded through the microscopic receiver, implanted near his ear. Proceed with caution, Siren. Remember your primary objective. The Scytheran battle fleet must be neutralized before they can align with the Proxima Syndicate. Understood, Brody replied, ignoring the twinge of discomfort he felt at the deception. Siren out. He deactivated the communicator and moved to the transparent dome, gazing out at the stark beauty of the Scytheran landscape. The mission parameters were clear. Secure the Queen's trust, neutralize the threat of Scytheran military power, and establish Earth's dominance through a one-sided alliance. Yet, as he watched the silver light of the twin moons illuminate the desert, he found himself questioning which side represented the greater threat, General Vex with his isolationist aggression, or Commander Vale with his colonialist ambitions. And somewhere in the middle stood Queen Nyla, the Silver Death, who had spared his life and now watched him sleep. The following week brought increased tension within the royal court. Clan representatives demanded the resumption of ritual combat, while General Vex publicly questioned the Queen's judgment in keeping the human envoy as an advisor. In private council sessions, the debates grew heated. Your Majesty, Vex declared during one such meeting, his scaled face flushed with indignation. By harboring this human, you risk alienating our strongest allies. The Proxima Syndicate has offered us military technology far superior to anything Earth could provide. The Syndicate, Nyla replied coolly, destroyed 3 of our outer colonies last cycle. Their offer of alliance comes with subjugation. Better than the human alternative, Vex countered, glancing contemptuously at Brody, who stood quietly beside the Queen's throne. Their coalition claims partnership while demanding access to our quadrium mines. They seek to drain our resources while offering empty promises of protection. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council chamber. Brody noted which clan representatives nodded along with Vex's accusations. Valuable intelligence for his mission, but also potentially useful in protecting Nyla. "The human will address the council," Nyla announced, silencing the murmurs. "Speak, Envoy Keller." Brody stepped forward, conscious of the hostile gazes fixed upon him. "Honorable representatives, General Vex speaks with passionate conviction about Cytheran independence. His concern for your planet's sovereignty is commendable." Vex blinked, clearly surprised by the apparent support. "However," Brody continued, "passion should not blind us to facts. The Proxima Syndicate has annexed 12 worlds in the past decade. None remain truly independent. Earth seeks trade, not conquest. We propose a protectorate status that guarantees Cytheran autonomy while providing defensive support against Proxima expansion." "Pretty words," Vex sneered. "But words are all humans offer. Where is the strength in this proposal? Where is the honor?" "Strength lies in prosperity," Brody countered. "Honor in the survival of your people. The coalition can increase Cytheran quadrium production efficiency by 40% while reducing extraction dangers. Your people would work less hazardous hours for greater profit." Several representatives straightened with interest at this concrete proposal. Quadrium mining was the backbone of Cytheran economy, but also its greatest source of civilian casualties. "Furthermore," Brody added, "Earth is prepared to establish 3 medical facilities, specializing in treating scale rot, the leading cause of death among your mining communities." This announcement caused even greater stir. Scale rot had plagued Cytheran miners for generations, with no effective treatment developed by their own scientists. General Vex slammed his fist on the council table. "Bribes and false promises, Your Majesty. Surely you see through this manipulation." Queen Nyla raised her hand for silence. "I see an envoy offering solutions to our people's suffering. General, what solutions have you proposed beyond continued isolation and warfare?" Vex's scales darkened with anger. "I propose strength through tradition, not weakness through foreign dependency." "Your concern is noted," Nyla replied dismissively. "This council will recess until tomorrow. I wish to review the humans' proposals in detail." As the representatives filed out, Brody caught sight of General Vex conferring urgently with 3 clan leaders in a shadowed alcove. Their expressions were grim, determined. Whatever they were planning, it was accelerating. That evening, Brody worked late into the night in the communication center, with Captain Zara watching his every move. He systematically searched through encrypted messages, following digital trails that led increasingly toward one conclusion. "There," he said finally, pointing to a decoded transmission on the screen. "Sent from General Vex's private chamber to a Proxima Syndicate vessel 2 days ago. Confirmation of package delivery, scheduled for tomorrow's council session." Zara frowned, leaning closer to read the message. "This could be legitimate military communication." "Perhaps," Brody conceded. "But cross-reference it with this." He pulled up another intercept. "Vex ordered specialized shielding installed in his council seat yesterday. Why would he need personal shielding during a peaceful council session?" Zara's expression hardened as the implications became clear. An attack during council. The Queen would be the primary target, along with any clan representatives who oppose alignment with Proxima. Brody added grimly, "A single strike to decapitate the government and blame human terrorists. The perfect pretext for war." Zara straightened, her hand moving to her weapon. "We must inform Her Majesty immediately." "Wait," Brody cautioned. "If we alert Vex that we've discovered his plot, he'll simply delay and try again when we're less vigilant. We need to catch him in the act, with evidence the clans cannot ignore." "You propose using the Queen as bait?" Zara asked, incredulously. "I propose a trap," Brody corrected. But we'll need Her Majesty's cooperation. Queen Nyla received the news with remarkable composure. In her private chambers, illuminated only by bioluminescent crystals embedded in the ceiling. She listened to Brody's evidence and proposal without interruption. "You're certain of this?" she asked when he had finished. "As certain as I can be without direct confession," Brody replied. "The communication patterns, the suspicious equipment installations, the timing, it all points to tomorrow's council session." Nyla turned to Captain Zara. "Your assessment." "The evidence is compelling, Your Majesty," Zara admitted reluctantly, "and consistent with the assassination attempts we've already experienced." Nyla nodded slowly, then fixed her silver gaze on Brody. "Why do you do this? Why risk your life to protect a queen who was prepared to execute you?" Brody held her gaze steadily. "Because I believe in the alliance our worlds could forge. Because the alternative, war between our peoples, would be devastating for both sides." "And there is no personal motivation?" she asked, a hint of something deeper in her question. "I didn't say that," Brody replied softly. The silence that followed was charged with unspoken emotions. Captain Zara shifted uncomfortably, aware she was witnessing an exchange that went beyond politics. Finally, Nyla rose, her decision made. "Very well. We will proceed with your plan. Envoy Keller, Captain, make the necessary preparations, but maintain absolute secrecy. If Vex suspects we know, all is lost." "Yes, Your Majesty." Zara bowed and exited, leaving Brody alone with the Queen. "If you're wrong," Nyla said when the door had closed, "you risk alienating the Council completely. My authority could be irreparably damaged." "And if I'm right," Brody countered, "I save your life and possibly your world." "You play a dangerous game, human." "We both do," he replied. "But then, you've always enjoyed danger, haven't you? Silver Death?" A smile touched her lips briefly. "Perhaps that explains why you're still alive." She stepped closer, until barely a hand's width separated them. "Or perhaps there are other reasons." Brody felt his pulse quicken. "Such as?" "In 100 executions," she said softly, "no one has ever looked at me as you do. Not with fear, not with hatred, but with understanding. We're not so different, you and I," Brody murmured. "Both bound by duty, both seeking something beyond the roles assigned to us." Her hand rose hesitantly, hovering near his face without touching him. "And what do you seek, Brody Keller?" The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Brody's subdermal communicator pulsed faintly, a reminder of his true mission, of Commander Vale's expectations, of Earth's strategic objectives. "Tomorrow," he said instead of answering, gently catching her hand and lowering it. "After the council, when Vex is exposed and your position is secure, then we'll speak of what we seek." Disappointment flickered briefly in her eyes, but she nodded. "Tomorrow, then." As Brody returned to his quarters that night, he activated his communicator one final time. "Commander Vale, we have confirmation of Proxima involvement. General Vex has been in direct communication with their forces." "Excellent work. Siren," Vale's voice responded. "This is the leverage we need. When the assassination attempt occurs, you'll be positioned as the Queen's savior. Her gratitude should secure our full access to the Quadrium mines." "And the Protectorate terms?" Brody asked, keeping his voice neutral. "Modified as planned," Vale replied. "Once the Queen is indebted to you, she'll accept our adjusted terms. Scytheran autonomy will be limited." "Understood," Brody said, though a hollow feeling spread through his chest. "Siren out." He deactivated the communicator and stood motionless in the center of his quarters, the twin moons illuminating his troubled expression. The mission was proceeding exactly as planned. Tomorrow, he would save Queen Nyla's life, expose General Vex as a traitor, and position Earth to essentially take control of Cythera's resources. A perfect strategic victory. So why did it feel increasingly like defeat? The council chamber hummed with tension the following morning. All 12 clan representatives had gathered, along with military commanders, royal advisors, and diplomatic staff. Queen Nyla sat regally upon her obsidian throne, with Brody standing at a respectful distance to her right. Captain Zara and her elite guards were positioned strategically throughout the chamber, alert, but giving no indication that anything unusual was expected. General Vex entered last, his ceremonial armor glinting in the light that streamed through the chamber's crystal ceiling. He took his specially modified seat with a confidence that bordered on smugness. "Representatives of Cythera," Nyla began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the vast chamber. "We gather at a crucial moment in our history. The choice between isolation and alliance will shape our world for generations to come." Brody scanned the room, noting the positions of Vex's most loyal supporters. They seemed unusually calm, some even slightly distracted, checking timepieces with subtle glances. "Before we proceed with formal proposals," Nyla continued, "I wish to address the concerns raised by General Vex regarding human intentions." Vex straightened, his expression wary. This deviation from the expected agenda clearly unsettled him. "The General has questioned Earth's motives in seeking alliance," Nyla said. "He suggests they offer empty words while concealing their true objectives." She turned slightly toward Brody. "Envoy Keller, would you care to respond to these accusations?" Brody stepped forward, his movements casual, but his senses hyper-alert. According to the intercepted communications, the package delivery was scheduled to occur 30 minutes into the session. They were approaching that window. "General Vex raises valid concerns," he began, surprising the council with his apparent agreement. "Any leader must question the motives of potential allies. Trust must be earned, not assumed." Vex's scales rippled with uncertainty. This was not the defensive response he had anticipated. "However," Brody continued, "while the General advises caution regarding Earth, he has been less forthcoming about his own diplomatic initiatives." He turned to face Vex directly. "Perhaps the General would care to inform the Council about his recent communications with the Proxima Syndicate?" A hush fell over the chamber. Vex's scales darkened with anger. "This is outrageous! The human makes baseless accusations to distract from his own agenda." "Not baseless," Brody replied calmly. He nodded to Captain Zara, who activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. "These transmissions were intercepted over the past week. They detail not only communication with Proxima vessels but specific arrangements for today's council session." The holographic display showed decoded messages, timestamps, and verification codes that even the most skeptical representative could not dismiss. Vex half rose from his seat, his hand moving toward a concealed control panel. "I would not activate that if I were you, General," Brody warned. "The explosive device integrated into your council seat has been neutralized, and your Proxima allies waiting in orbit have been greeted by 3 coalition warships that arrived during the night." Absolute silence gripped the chamber. Vex looked frantically around, seeking support from his allied representatives, but found only shocked expressions and growing anger. "You collude with our enemies," Nyla stated, rising from her throne. "You plot assassination in our sacred council chamber. You betray not only your queen, but all Cythera." "I sought to preserve our independence," Vex snarled, abandoning pretense. "The humans would make us slaves in all but name. At least Proxima offers us warriors' dignity." "Dignity?" Nyla's voice cut like her energy blade. "Was there dignity in murdering your own queen? In sacrificing council members loyal to Cythera's true interests?" "Better death than submission to human control," Vex declared, his desperation evident as royal guards moved to surround him. Brody stepped forward again. "No one seeks to control Cythera, General. The Protectorate Agreement guarantees your autonomy while providing mutual benefits." "Lies!" Vex spat. Your Commander Vale has already prepared revised terms that would grant Earth direct authority over our quadrium production and military forces. Brody felt the Queen's silver eyes turn toward him, questioning. This was the moment of truth, in more ways than one. General Vex is correct, Brody stated clearly, causing gasps throughout the chamber. Commander Vale's instructions were to secure advantageous terms for Earth following today's events. I was to leverage the Queen's gratitude after saving her life to extract concessions that would effectively end Scytheran independence. Murmurs of outrage rippled through the council. Captain Zara's hand moved to her weapon. Queen Nyla's expression remained unreadable. However, Brody continued, I am officially rejecting those instructions. He removed his subdermal communicator, now visible as a small metallic disc, and crushed it beneath his boot. My loyalty is not to Commander Vale, but to the alliance I believe our worlds can and should forge, as equals. He turned to face Queen Nyla directly. Your Majesty, I offer full disclosure of Earth's initial strategy and complete transparency in all future negotiations. I propose terms that protect Scytheran sovereignty while establishing mutual defense and fair trade agreements. For a long moment, Nyla studied him, her silver eyes searching his for deception. The council chamber remained completely silent, the fate of two worlds hanging in the balance. Finally, she spoke. Captain Zara, arrest General Vex for treason and attempted regicide. Secure his co-conspirators for interrogation. As the guards moved to comply, Nyla addressed the stunned council. Representatives of Cythera, you have witnessed both betrayal and honesty today. General Vex sought to deliver us into Proxima's hands through violence and deception. Envoy Keller, despite his original instructions, chose truth and mutual respect. She gestured toward Brody. I move that we formally open negotiations with Earth for a true alliance, not the unequal arrangement initially contemplated, but a partnership that honors Cytheran independence while fostering interstellar cooperation. One by one, the clan representatives voiced their agreement. Even those who had previously supported Vex now distanced themselves from his treachery, eager to demonstrate their loyalty to the Queen. As the formal vote was recorded, Brody caught Nyla's gaze across the chamber. In her silver eyes, he saw something he had never expected to find on this mission. Not just respect or political calculation, but something deeper, more personal. When the council session concluded, Nyla approached him as the representatives filed out. You betrayed your commander's trust, she observed quietly. I chose a better path, Brody replied. For both our worlds. And for yourself, she asked, her tone softening. That remains to be seen, he said with a small smile. I may have just ended my diplomatic career. Or begun a new one, she countered. Cythera will need a permanent liaison with Earth. Someone who understands both worlds and has proven his integrity. Are you offering me a job, Your Majesty? I'm offering you a chance to finish our interrupted conversation, she replied, about what we each seek beyond duty. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the royal palace, Brody stood with Queen Nyla on her private balcony, overlooking the capital city. Below them, thousands of bioluminescent lights pulsed in homes and streets, a living reflection of the stars above. Your Commander Vale will not be pleased, Nyla remarked, standing close enough that her silver hair occasionally brushed against his shoulder in the desert breeze. He'll adapt, Brody replied. The alliance still benefits Earth, even without the exploitative terms he envisioned. And honestly, replacing me won't be difficult. There are dozens of operatives in Project Siren. None who would have made the choice you did, Nyla said with certainty. Brody turned to face her. I need to confess something. Another deception? She asked, though her tone held no accusation. A truth, he corrected. My mission was always manipulation. I was selected because psychological profiles suggested you would respond to my approach. the unexpected challenger who refused to beg, who offered intellectual stimulation instead of fear. "And did you succeed?" she asked. "In manipulating me. I succeeded in recognizing something no profile could have predicted," Brody said softly. "That beneath the Silver Death was a leader who cared deeply for her people, who maintained brutal traditions not out of bloodlust, but because she believed they protected Scytheran's strength and independence." Nyla's expression softened. "And what else did you recognize?" "A woman who watches her prisoner sleep," he said with a gentle smile, "who hesitates before executing her 100th challenger because, perhaps, she has grown weary of death rather than connection." She looked away, toward the distant horizon where the desert met the night sky. 100 executions," she murmured. "Each one meant to demonstrate my strength, my resolve. Instead, they isolated me. Even Captain Zara, loyal as she is, fears me more than she understands me." "Fear is a poor foundation for any relationship," Brody observed, "whether between individuals or worlds." "And what foundation would you propose instead?" Nyla asked, turning back to him. "Honesty," he replied. "Even when difficult, respect for differences, without demanding conformity. And perhaps, eventually, trust." "Trust," she repeated, as if testing the word. "I have not trusted anyone since I took the throne 20 cycles ago." "It's a risk," Brody acknowledged, "for both of us." She studied him for a long moment, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "The Great Silver Death is not supposed to take risks. She is supposed to be invulnerable, untouchable." "And is that who you want to be?" Brody asked. "Forever?" Instead of answering, Nyla reached out slowly and placed her hand against his cheek, the touch she had withheld the night before. Her skin was cooler than a human's, smooth like polished stone, but her touch held unexpected gentleness. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "we will begin renegotiating the terms of the alliance, as equals." "And tonight?" Brody asked, covering her hand with his own. "Tonight," Nyla replied, "we negotiate terms of our own." 3 months later, the grand amphitheater stood transformed. Where blood had once soaked the sand, elaborate tables now formed a circle for diplomatic conferences. Representatives from Earth sat alongside Scytheran clan leaders, finalizing details of the historic alliance that would formally establish the first equal partnership between their worlds. In the center of this circle stood Queen Nyla and Brody Keller, now officially recognized as Earth's ambassador to Cythera. The martial tradition had not ended entirely. Nyla still carried her energy blade, but it had evolved. Combat demonstrations replaced executions, showcasing skill without demanding death. "The Proxima Syndicate has withdrawn their forces from the sector," Brody informed the assembled delegates. "Our combined fleet deployments have convinced them that aggression would be unprofitable. And the Quadrium trade agreement has increased production efficiency by 38%. Nyla added, "with safety incidents reduced by over 60% since the implementation of Earth's extraction technology." A Cytheran elder rose from his seat. "The Council acknowledges these achievements. The Alliance has proven its worth more quickly than many expected." He glanced meaningfully between Nyla and Brody. "As have other diplomatic arrangements." Subtle ripples of amusement passed through the Cytheran representatives. Though never officially acknowledged, the personal relationship between the Queen and the ambassador had become an open secret, one generally viewed with approval, as it symbolized the deeper connection between their worlds. When the session concluded, Brody and Nyla made their way to the palace balcony that had become their private retreat. The setting suns cast the desert in shades of amber and gold, a stark contrast to the silver moonlight that would follow. "Commander Vale has been reassigned," Brody mentioned, reading from a communication device. "Apparently, my success, despite ignoring his instructions, has raised uncomfortable questions about Project Siren's overall approach." "A victory for honesty," Nyla observed with a slight smile. Will Earth send a replacement handler? They're reconsidering the entire program, Brody replied. It seems our model of transparent negotiation is yielding better results than manipulation and deception. Who would have thought? Nyla laughed softly, the sound still rare enough to delight him. Perhaps there's hope for our species yet. Speaking of hope, Brody said, growing more serious. The Council seems ready to formalize the Alliance Treaty. Once signed, my official mission will be complete. Nyla turned to him, a question in her silver eyes. And then? And then, he said, taking her hands in his. I was thinking of requesting a permanent posting, if the Queen would find that acceptable. The Queen, Nyla replied with mock formality, would find a temporary assignment entirely unacceptable. Is that so? Brody raised an eyebrow. Indeed. She stepped closer. The Queen has become accustomed to your diplomatic skills. She would not easily relinquish them. Then it's fortunate, Brody murmured, that I have no desire to be relinquished. As the last light of day faded from the sky, they stood together at the edge of the balcony, visible to the city below, where once a solitary queen had looked out at her kingdom in isolation. Now 2 figures from different worlds represented a new possibility, not just for Cythera and Earth, but for themselves. The Silver Death had found something stronger than execution, more powerful than tradition, and Brody Keller, sent to manipulate a queen, had instead discovered the one thing his mission parameters had never accounted for: transformation through genuine connection. Behind them, the palace glowed with bioluminescent light. Before them stretched the vast desert, harsh but beautiful under the emerging stars. And above, the twin moons began their nightly ascent, casting silver light on a world forever changed by a challenger who refused to beg, and a queen who discovered the courage to show mercy.